Well, hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Rick Settersten, and I have the great pleasure of directing the Hallie Center for Healthy Children and Families, and of working together with a terrific leadership team. We are really excited about this day and the content of the presentation. We've been working hard on it, so we hope you won't be disappointed. We want to thank you all for being here today, and to so many of you for being an active part of the center in these last 5 years. As a team, we thought we'd start with a question. And the question is, if you could think of just one word to reflect the kind of community and society in which you'd like to see children and youth and families live, what would that word be? Just one word. Kind of community and society you'd like children and families to exist in. Is
that a rhetorical question?
No, it's not. I want to hear, Molly, I want to hear what you have to say. What's that?
Healthy.
Inclusive, great.
Equitable.
Respectful, peaceful.
Friendly.
Happy.
Friendly.
Right? We are the happiest college in the nation, after all. What's that? Rational. Wasn't expecting that one, but we'll go with it. Anything else? Just, fair. Right. Caring. Supportive. Great. This is exactly what this college is about, and it's exactly what our center is about. Sometimes we don't associate those words with research. But what you're going to hear throughout the presentation today is a constant reference to those kinds of words, because that's where our commitment lies. And we love what we do. And we hope that also shines through. So it's hard to believe that the center has actually, this building anyway, has been here for 5 years, a little more than 5. Those of you who are historians will remember that the grand opening of in the fall, September. But we thought this would be a great way to end the year. And we're looking forward today to telling you about some of our accomplishments. But in a way, it seems like just yesterday that we were meeting with architects and interior designers and the Arts Commission. And we were visiting the construction site, watching this amazing building emerge. Some of you may not realize that the architecture of the building was actually was inspired by the drawings of children's drawings of what home meant to them, what home looks like and feels like. You can actually see some of those. This is from the grand opening. You can see some of those drawings behind Tammy Bray. But the grand opening actually kind of marked a point in a larger process, which had started a couple years earlier. And just as individuals and couples and groups have their origin stories about how we came to be, right? So too do ideas and places. And this is also a good example of that. The story of this center actually began as a brainchild between Tammy Bray and the late Hallie Ford. I think Mrs. Ford was crossing the 100-year mark as they were starting to talk about the center. She passed a few years later, but Tammy made the mistake, as she tells it, in assuming that a long-lived woman would be interested in aging. And instead, Mrs. Ford immediately corrected her to say, no, not at all. My interests really lie with children and with families, and in thinking in more forward ways about how to build a more secure and safe and productive society. Investing in the young was the way to go. So that's how this center was actually born. And it's our great pleasure to have Carmen Ford Phillips here today, sitting at the back. Carmen, will you just raise your hand? Thank you. Carmen has been with us on this journey from the start, and we're so grateful to to Carmen and the entire extended Ford family for their continued support of the center. At that early time, there were a number of other significant gifts that were really central in getting the center launched, from the Campbells, the Townsends, the Schetkes, the Reeses, the Seeleys, Barbara Peck, Cheryl Lutz, and Catherine Smith. These last few years have been major contributors to the work that we're doing. At the end of a long process, we kind of settled on 4 core areas on which to focus our research, and you're going to hear about those today. 2 are sort of age-based. There's an early childhood core, and there's a youth and young adult core. And then 2 are sort of more topic-based. One is what we now call HEAL, healthy eating and active living. And the 4th is really on parenting and family. Those 4 cores, we thought, were on a helpful nodes around which to coalesce faculty to begin designing activities and collaborating on research. And they've fared pretty well, though over the last few years there have also been some changes with the influx of new faculty into our college. These have been years of great transformation. I think since 2009 we've hired well over 40 full-time faculty. And that's been exciting for all of the centers. We've always hired with an eye to how new faculty could contribute to one or more of our centers. Synergy across the centers as well. And wow, really, wow, what great hires we've made. I mean, so many of you here today have just done amazing things in our college already. So I'm going to move on, but I want to leave you with three main messages. One, it's hard for me to remember the time BC. It's a different BC. It's before the center. The reason is because it's so central to the fabric of our everyday life in this college, and it was meant to be that. But I have trouble at times remembering that there was a time, a few years of my own time here at OSU, where this building didn't exist. And it's just become host literally to hundreds and hundreds of meetings every year. Retreats, lectures, colloquia. We keep this place moving. And I guess that's the second point. It's a hub. Say it with me. It's a hub. It's a hub. That's what this building is really meant to be. It's a hub of interdisciplinary and impact-oriented scholarship on children and families. As a Research One university, we are composed of national leaders in research whose work in the last 5 years has been supported by tens of millions of dollars, some from federal agencies like the NIH, the U.S. Department of Ed, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the CDC, as well as private foundations. The Ford Family Foundation included among them, the Oregon Community Foundation, Meyer Memorial Trust, the Collins Foundation, Bezos, Kellogg, MacArthur. Those are all important funders of our work. It's a hub for training of literally dozens of undergraduate and graduate students each year. And it's, at the moment anyway, also home to the research journal, Research in Human Development. It's a hub of collaborative relationships that have also served to integrate our college. Working groups of faculty who support each other in writing papers and proposals and briefs of many kinds. And as a land-grant institution, I mean, as scientists, we're committed to improving the lives of other people and people in our state. We've tried to really be a good example of walking the talk about a true partnership with extension. So that's one thing. It's a hub. And the second important message, however, is that it's bigger than these 4 walls. Say that one with me, too. It's bigger than these 4 walls. We have this challenge that we have this building, and it's nicely packaged, and there are limited projects in the building, housed in the building. The Hallie Ford Center is so much more than this building. And I think that's an important message as well. We have just limited project rooms that are really meant to house funded projects that have sizable staff needs. But we have colleagues throughout our college, and especially throughout our college, whose work is central to what we're doing. And you're going to hear all about that today. We had a hard time settling on what we were going to present today because you're going to hear some reports from each of those cores. They've only got about 10 minutes. And we had to figure out what to really highlight for you. And we had to make some hard choices. So we've got a sprinkling of projects that we'll talk about that we hope will be a stimulus for more discussion afterward, which really tried to organize some of our comments around three themes. The first is really about building resilience among individuals, families, and in communities. A second theme is really about building strong translational science that gets carried into social settings and that informs decision makers and influences policy. And a third thing, which we sort of weren't expecting, but has really emerged as a major theme, kind of looking back on some of our accomplishments thus far, is really about how to develop innovative tools and harness technology to accomplish those prior two themes. So you're going to hear about all those today. And I'll start with Megan McClelland. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan McClelland. I'm here to talk to you about the Early Childhood Research Corps. I'm so excited to talk about this. We have such fun in this research. My good friends are here and other great researchers who are working in this course, so I'll jump right in. Early childhood is a critical time to lay the foundation, as we know, for children's healthy development. The Early Childhood Research Corps really focuses on skills and malleable factors, key factors, that set the stage for children's success. For example, some of the faculty in our core focus on really malleable things like self-regulation, which enables children to control their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. These skills are foundational for children's early learning and healthy development in the long term. Together, our faculty build interdisciplinary collaborations to make new discoveries about children's development. We've been developing new and innovative tools that I'm excited to talk about, and we translate research into policy and practice. So I'm going to give you a quick few examples of some of the projects that we've been working on for the past 5 years. First, we make lots of cool scientific discoveries. And that's a really cute kid, by the way, don't you think? This is what happens when you have to find kids who are interested in being pictured like your own. So there you go. Isn't he cute? A unique strength of the Hallie Center is to bring researchers together from diverse fields. So as one example, an interdisciplinary team of researchers in environmental health, toxicology, child development, and kinesiology came together to examine how the effects of environmental chemicals such as flame retardants are related to school readiness. And as my colleagues involved in this will tell you, I had no idea what a flame retardant was 5 years ago. And then I completely became paranoid because they're in everything my children have. And then I've moved back into mild paranoia, into a little bit more of a normative state. But it's been a very fun experience overall. As part of this study that we've been working on with my colleagues, children's wristbands. Children wore these wristbands, were a really innovative technology, that measured their exposure to flame retardant chemicals. We have found in a number of papers that these chemicals were linked to the age of the home that children lived in, family socioeconomic status, and also to more problem behaviors in kids. The study also measured children's fine and gross motor skills, and we found that these skills in preschool predicted stronger self-regulation and social competence, including school readiness. And before I want to just mention that this collaboration has been so fun and so successful. And we've been able to disseminate our results in a number of papers. They've gotten a wide amount of media and research attention. Even though some of the papers I still can't, I can read parts of them, and then I'm going, Molly, translate, Kim, translate. And they do the same for the papers that we've been first author on, so that's actually been pretty fun. We're also applying for a large grant to continue this fun work we've been doing together. In addition to these kinds of activities, faculty in our research core are making their own important discoveries. So as one member of the team I just mentioned, Megan MacDonald, examines the importance of motor development and physical activity. She has found that physically active behaviors can be promoted in children with disabilities, and they also affect other aspects of children's development. Our faculty are also making important discoveries working with teachers and children. So the Roots of Resilience program, led by Shannon Lipscomb at OSU Cascades, helps early childhood teachers build resilience in children impacted by trauma. Here in Corvallis, Bridget Hatfield has found that teacher-child relationships can reduce children's stress and also improve their behavior. In addition to scientific discovery, we also develop new and innovative tools. A few examples: the Head, Toes, Knees, Shoulders game. It's a 5-minute self-regulation task that predicts children's school readiness and early academic performance. Along with our colleagues, we've had 2 grants to support this work. And really what I think is a great example of how we include our students in all the work that we do at the center. We've had over 175 undergraduate and graduate students working on this project. The Kindergarten Readiness team here at the Hallie Ford Center has also influenced statewide policy in the adoption of Oregon's kindergarten assessment measures. And we also develop interventions like the Red Light, Purple Light program to improve school readiness. As part of this work, we've developed a music and games app that can be used by parents and teachers to promote school readiness in children. And we have a new grant that is supporting this work. We also translate then these discoveries into practice, which I think is a really important theme here at the Hallie Ford Center. So a few examples of that is the Oregon School Readiness Research Consortium. This was funded by the Ford Family Foundation to bring together the best people studying early learning and child development in Oregon. With the Hallie Ford Center as the lead, it includes our colleagues from Portland State University, Oregon Social Learning Center, and the University of Oregon. We also have a wide group of graduate students that are involved in this work. And together with these students, we've analyzed data and developed research, policy, and parenting briefs on children in Oregon. We have a new website that we also developed to disseminate this information. Faculty members Shannon Lipscomb and Bobby Weber are also examples of this. They've led a collaborative research project to improve Oregon's quality rating and improvement system. And Bobby Weber's work on the Oregon Child Care Research Partnership brings together researchers, policymakers, and practitioners to inform early learning policy in Oregon and beyond. What I think is a really cool thing about this is that each year this group, along with the Oregon School Readiness Research Consortium, brings together researchers and practitioners who they co-host this very popular Child Care and Education Researchers Roundtable, which brings together researchers and practitioners to discuss critical issues facing children and families of Oregon. This is such a great example. It sells out. There's not enough room for people to go every year, and it's just such a great example of translating the research that we do and our colleagues around the state do into practice for ways to improve children's outcomes. So we've had a lot of exciting projects over the past 5 years, but we have a lot of cool things going on that are just getting started. So as I already mentioned, we're working on a large flame retardant and school readiness grant with the interdisciplinary team I mentioned earlier. As part of the School Readiness Consortium, we are applying for a statewide researcher practitioner partnership grant with our colleagues at Portland State University and the State Early Learning Division. We, as I already mentioned, have just received a new grant to develop and test our school readiness app with parents. And in addition, bringing in new faculty that have just come on in the last few years. We're really excited. Our new faculty are starting a project to examine the effects of poverty on children and families in rural places. And our faculty are also looking at how self-regulation may change over time in children and youth in Oregon through a new cross-core collaboration with the Youth and Young Adult Core. So I'll just finish up by saying I have really loved bringing together faculty and students, amazing faculty and students at OSU and across the state. I'm really excited to see what the next 5 years brings. So I'll turn it over now to Peggy Dolcini, who will talk about the Youth and Young Adult Corps. Okay, we can do this.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all here. So I'd like to begin where Megan left off and say that it really has been delightful to have the chance to be part of the Hallie Ford Center, and particularly working with the folks who've been involved in the adult Corps. The research that I'm going to be talking about moves us to another developmental period, adolescence. It's a time that can be exhilarating, awkward, and sometimes terrifying. Youth's experiences during adolescence can have a profound effect on their development, including their transition into adult roles. Investigators in this Corps are examining a host of important issues that it may either enhance or hinder their development. And as is the case throughout the center, the research that I'm talking about in this Corps is multidisciplinary, it's collaborative, it includes students, it includes investigators from other universities, and moreover, it's largely focused on vulnerable populations. So how to talk about 5 years in 10 minutes? It's 2 minutes for each year, right? Okay, I thought about another way. So in public health, we talk about 3 types of prevention: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary prevention aims to increase wellness, enhance wellness, keep people from getting sick. Secondary prevention is largely focused on screening and early treatment, and tertiary prevention addresses the outcomes of serious illnesses. We can think about the projects in the Corps as addressing those 3 areas, and I'm going to use that as a framework for talking about examples of the work that we're doing. So, primary prevention. Probably no surprise that there's a focus on tobacco. And it's no secret that tobacco prevention has been a longstanding issue in public health, and we've made huge strides in this area. However, the advent of new tobacco products like electronic cigarettes has really changed the game for prevention. And Carrie Lynn Sukuma's work is jumping in and investigating those issues. She's looking at things like vaping and hookah use among vulnerable youth, identifying how they're targeted by the media, and developing ways to counter those messages. Another topic is workplace safety. So prevention of on-the-job accidents is critical to the development and maintenance of a strong workforce, and yet we know that young people are the most likely to be injured on the job. Laurel Kinsel and her team have developed educational programs to prevent workplace injuries among youth and to give them the skills they need to speak up about workplace safety issues. She's also doing very interesting research looking at injuries in highly dangerous occupations such as commercial fishing in order to tailor programs to meet the needs of those folks. The final example on primary prevention has to do with legislation. Primary prevention projects can address or be addressed by legislative issues. And here we're speaking specifically Medicaid expansion, which happened earlier in this decade, which increased insurance coverage for young women of reproductive age. In Oregon, the Medicaid expansion is being delivered through innovative coordinated care organizations. Marie Harvey, Jeff Luck, and Jing Ho Yoon have shown that expanded coverage through the CCOs has resulted in higher levels of prenatal care and decreases in negative birth outcomes. We know that legislation is fluid. It's changing as we speak. It makes this type of research highly significant and timely. So moving on to secondary prevention, again, largely focused on screening and early treatment. Joe Catania and I have 2 active projects in this domain, and they focus on HIV. So early treatment for HIV is both a prevention strategy because it reduces transmission, and a secondary prevention because it brings people into treatment so that we can improve their lives. And testing and linkage to care are essential, but unfortunately many people don't get tested or they wait until they're very ill to be tested. New technology has led to the development of HIV self-test kits. You know, you can do it on your own, you can do it at home, you can do it in private. However, there are clear challenges to using these test kits correctly. So in Tanzania, for example, our work is testing alternative strategies that do not require people to be able to read or to have technology in order to correctly use the test. And we're doing parallel work in Chicago with young African-American gay and bisexual men. In terms of tertiary prevention, we have the work of Jessica Gorman, who's looking at young cancer survivors. So many of you know that cancer treatments decrease the likelihood of problems with reproductive issues. And therefore, the survivors are facing challenges, both physical and emotional, around these issues. Her work has identified reproductive health needs, developed screening tools to measure these needs, and she's working on interventions to improve survivor communication with their practitioners on these issues. Now, I talked about the 3 types or the 3 flavors of prevention, but this doesn't really cover the scope of projects in the core. Some investigators are studying development more broadly, identifying key factors that shape youth trajectories. And this work is exemplified by the work of Brian Flay and John Geldof, who are both addressing character development. Brian and his team's work has shown that character development interventions impact educational and health outcomes for youth. John has been exploring character development cross-culturally, and his work also shows that self-regulation is an important factor in positive development. And finally, Rick Settersten's work is focused on the transition to adult roles in today's society, and this research has highlighted how support from important adults really has a strong impact on position. So as we move forward, we intend to continue existing lines of research as well as expanding into new areas. We plan to continue work on dissemination and implementation in HIV, increasing work on cancer issues, new programmatic work incorporating substance use into the research on workplace injuries, and as previously mentioned by Megan, across core collaboration, looking at self-regulation and development during adolescence. So like the adolescents we study, this core has grown and changed dramatically over the past 5 years, sometimes too slow, sometimes seemingly too fast, and at times awkwardly. However, I look forward to seeing the development and the maturation of this core as we engage new faculty and continue this work, and at some point, maybe over the next 5 or 10 years, this core will morph into its young adult stage. And I'd like to... And I'd like to turn this over to Kathy Gunter, who's the director of the HEAL.
All right. Another way to talk about 5 years of research in 10 minutes is very quickly. So I'm going to start. I don't need to tell this group that. That's right. That's right. Sally doesn't think I can do this without staying in one place, but we'll see. Healthy eating and sufficient physical activity across the lifespan are critically important behaviors for preventing chronic conditions among all children and families and reducing health disparities among vulnerable populations. So to ensure all children and families have similar opportunities to engage in healthy eating and physical activity behaviors, faculty in the HEAL Core are developing innovative tools and harnessing technologies to engage partners and communities in the research process towards new discoveries that are relevant to them. HEAL Core faculty are translating scientific discoveries into practice and informing policy decisions that influence the ability of populations to access opportunities to be physically active and eat healthfully. We employ multidisciplinary collaborations and engage students in all of the work that we do to ensure future generations can build on today's discoveries. So a central component of the work being done by faculty in the HEAL Core involves the development of innovative resources and assessment tools and creative applications of technology. HEAL faculty in the Kinesiology Adapted Physical Activity program are doing work exemplary of such applications. Dr. Sam Logan is building on the work of his former mentors in Delaware, adapting off-the-shelf ride-on cars to increase mobility among young children with disabilities. And he is in that work adapting cars to promote the skill of standing. His research shows that when children have access to these cars, they have increased mobility, improved interactions with peers, and positive social development. But that's not all. He's building on this work even further through collaborations with faculty in the College of Engineering to marry the ride-on-car innovations with technology seen in pitching machines that would enable children who are unable to participate in throwing activities with their peers use switch technology to simulate throwing. Pretty cool stuff. Now, Megan MacDonald, who was mentioned in the last core, and I believe is mentioned in the next core, clearly a slacker, is using technology to examine the effects of an animal-assisted physical activity intervention using the family dog to promote physical activity among children with developmental disabilities. And I believe I have the pleasure of the first public announcement that Megan just received NIH funding to carry out this work in collaboration with colleagues John Shuna and others in Vet Med. So congratulations. It's also her birthday week, so not a bad week for Megan. Dr. Sun Wong and Melinda Minor and their interdisciplinary team on the Wave Ripples for Change project are meeting active teens where they live and play online. Teens create avatars and learn through virtual world simulations how to make behavioral choices to prevent unhealthy weight gain. The goal is to determine whether virtual training impacts real-world behavior and removing dependency on study participants, in this case, highly reliable teenagers, to log their activity. And all health reports are automated via an in-house system developed by EECS and our own John Shuna. The Grow Healthy Kids and Communities project team, led by Dr. Deborah John and myself, focuses on understanding how rural family homes, schools, and community environments influence children's risk for obesity. Dr. John's innovative application of Heal Maps, a tool that integrates GIS technology, photography, and community engagement, has helped identify gaps in access to food and physical activity resources in rural areas and enabled rural residents to use the data derived from these processes to secure funding to make improvements in their communities. These access issues compound challenges for rural families that have food insecurity, who report they're struggling to provide opportunities for their children to be active compared to families who are not food insecure. This discovery has led to new core collaborations to delve deeper into the relationships between low physical activity, food insecurity, and rural childhood obesity. The School Physical Activity and Environment tool, SPANET, we're very fond of acronyms in extension and the work that we do, so apologies, was designed to measure school policy, practice, and physical environments. And it's used to help schools quantify the quality of the school environment, identify areas for improvement, and select appropriate intervention and change strategies. And through objective monitoring of physical activity among children in rural schools, the GROW team uncovered the realities of high overweight and obesity rates and low physical activity levels at school among these rural children. This discovery informed testimony to the Oregon Senate Healthcare Committee about the importance of physical education and physical activity, especially for vulnerable children. Conditions we are working to improve through collaborations with Extension Family Community Health, 4-H, and SNAP-Ed programs. All right. Both the WAVE and GROW projects are funded under a specific mechanism that requires integration of research with extension and education, assuring essentially that projects are community-based and there's dedicated support for training students to ensure the knowledge gained via projects informs the practice of the future workforce. These projects have also partnered with faculty across 3 colleges and engaged over 4,000 community members in research processes. Arguably, the most important aspect of our work is translating our efforts through outreach and practice with a goal of transforming best practices and informing policies to the benefit of children and families. The HEAL Core Adapted PA program faculty contribute through 4 unique outreach programs. The Go Baby Go program has to date provided over 200 ride-on cars to Oregon families. The Impact for Life, and multiple sclerosis exercise programs have been serving the Corvallis and surrounding communities for years, providing critical programs otherwise unavailable for children and families and adults with disabilities. Each of these programs engages many students, providing invaluable experiential learning opportunities. The HEAL maps, SPAN IT, and Balanced Energy Physical Activity Toolkit, which were developed as part of the GROW project, have been peer-reviewed by federal agencies such as the USDA and the National Collaborative on Childhood Obesity Research, and recently selected for inclusion in the National SNAP-Ed Obesity Prevention Toolkit. As a result, these tools are being adopted by several states and disseminated throughout Oregon via our SNAP-Ed and extension programs. Communities are also using these environmental assessments to quantify gaps in resources and using the data to apply for community grants that allow them to make changes to improve access. And some examples of these include building walking trails, procuring refrigerators for food pantries, adding traffic calming elements in bike lanes, and improving. So we're excited for the future. With new faculty contributing new perspectives, ideas, and energy, evidenced by some of the research interests core members are pursuing through current grant writing and pilot research activities, a few of which are highlighted on the screen. And I just want to close by adding that working and learning in the center through interactions with my fantastic colleagues, the varied colloquia, seminar, and writing groups the center hosts, has led to new project ideas in our core that intertwine the work of the different cores in ways that have the potential to tackle problems from multiple perspectives. It's truly an inspiring environment, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to lead the core and work, live, and learn here. And now I'm turning it over to Shauna Tominey and Sally Bowman.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. We're so thrilled to have all of you here today. I'm one of the newer members of this core, but I am thrilled to be here representing amazing work that's happened over many years here at the Hallie Ford Center as part of the Parenting and Family Life Core. My name is Shauna Tominey, and I'd like to start by talking about the importance of parenting. So warm and responsive parenting and those secure and trusting relationships that develop between children and the adults in their lives are absolutely foundational to healthy development. Now, parenting is learned. And it can be learned through the models we have in our lives, through the relationships that we have with our extended families. It can also be learned through parenting education. But historically, parenting education opportunities have not been made widely available to families. And increasingly, families, more now than in the past, have been living away from their extended families and their families of origin. And so they're missing out on those traditional opportunities to learn from their families. In addition, what families need has changed over time and continues to change. Also, our knowledge of research and what it really takes, what those factors are that contribute to positive parenting and positive outcomes for children and families continues to grow and change over time. And it's really essential that we make sure to get that information and that research into the hands of folks who need it the most, the families themselves. So grounded in that belief that all children and families deserve access to resources, knowledge, and research on those best practices for child and family outcomes, in the Parenting and Family Life Core, we really focus on a number of things. One is to conduct high-quality research to help us understand what are those factors that lead to positive outcomes for children and families. Two, to get that information out through community partnerships and community programs so that families can benefit directly from that information and knowledge. And also to evaluate those programs, to look at what are the programs that we're sending out in the community. Are they effective? Are they meeting the needs of diverse families? Whether those families are from culturally diverse backgrounds, living in urban or rural areas, if they're families who have experienced adversity or trauma, families from different socioeconomic strata, and so on. And finally, to take that information and knowledge that we have from our research and inform and influence policy so that children and families have access to the programs, to the knowledge, to the research they need to thrive. The research in the Parenting and Family Life Core is diverse and it's varied. To give a few examples, Shannon Lipscomb and her colleagues are studying how parenting practices influence and impact children in different ways based on their genetics or their stress levels. She's also studying how early child care settings might be used to support families who have experienced adversity or trauma in their lives. Another example, Bridget Hatfield and Megan MacDonald, names that you've seen come up in the other course, which is wonderful to see all that collaboration happening, have explored how children with autism spectrum disorders might engage similarly to and different from their peers in different play-based settings, as well as engage with their parents across these different settings. So as we learn from this research, how then do we get it into the hands of families so that the knowledge that we have that might impact family life actually can do that? One of our ways of doing that is through an innovative collaboration. The Oregon Parenting Education Collaborative, another acronym to throw out at you, OPEC, which has different connotations for different people. But we really push that OPEC and reframing what your thoughts around that acronym might be. OPEC is really about the most valuable resource we have in our communities, the children and the families. So OPEC is an innovative collaboration between the Hallie Ford Center, OSU's Extension Family and Community Health Program, and Oregon's 4 largest philanthropic foundations aim to create a statewide network of hubs, parenting education hubs, that are that go-to place for parenting education. Currently, there are 15 hubs serving 29 counties in Oregon, as well as Siskiyou County, California, and we have an aim of being statewide by 2020. So since its inception in 2010, OPEC hubs have worked to destigmatize accessing parenting education, to spread awareness of the programs that exist in communities, and then to also expand access to those programs as well as the number of programs. And a significant number of families have participated in OPEC programs, with these numbers growing continually over time. The parenting education team at the Hallie Ford Center provides evaluation support as well as professional development. One of the ways we do that is through an annual conference. This year, the 4th annual Oregon Parenting Educators Conference will be taking place on May 22nd. We would love to see you there if you'd like an opportunity to engage with practitioners who are serving children and families. Typically, between 400 and 500 practitioners from around the state attend the conference. In addition, faculty collaborate with OPEC to evaluate OPEC programs and to study the impact of parenting education on outcomes for children and families. Investigators in the Parenting and Family Life Corps, which have included faculty, staff, and students, have found that participating in parenting education has led to increases in positive parenting practices, with parents from low-income backgrounds reporting the greatest gains. In addition, they found that parenting education has the potential to impact mother-child interactions during play with promising results. And finally, they've also identified areas where specific groups of families might benefit from culturally specific and culturally responsive programs and might have unique needs that we need to look at. How are we really ensuring that we're meeting those needs for all of our families in Oregon? As we look to the future, we're very excited about not only the research that's happening now, but the potential for research and this research to grow in the future. One of those ways is through continuing to share the research that we have and what we learn through networks like OPEC, to be able to get it out into the hands of children and families, as well as to be able to learn from that network, to learn back from them, what is it that we're doing well, where are we off target, how can we adapt and adjust to best meet the needs of Oregon families, and how can we use the system we have to serve as a model for other states as well. We'd also love to continue fostering innovative partnerships. So if you're not a part of this Corps, but you think, gosh, I would love to be a part of this Corps, please come and join us. Just to give an example, a recent proposal that went out is combining self-regulation, financial planning, healthy eating, and parenting. And we love to take this research and think about what can we do to really influence policy. So I'd love to turn this over to Sally Bowman, who will share with you some examples of how this Corps has done that. Thank you.
So I'm very happy to be here. I've been here since the beginning, and I'm also very happy that Shauna joined OSU less than a year ago. It's been a wonderful addition to the Corps. As you can see, all these, I mean, it's amazing. All these years, is this not amazing to our new dean? Are you not amazed? I think so. It is phenomenal, really. It's so much that we're all collectively proud of all the work that we're doing and how we translate research into practice as well as into policy. And so I'm just going to speak for a moment about family policy, and then Rick will tie us up. So one of the projects we decided to embark on is called the Family Impact Seminar. It is a model that's been developed by other land grants, and we decided it was time for us to engage in this effort. The purpose is to find out those topics that are of highest interest to legislators, legislative staff, and state agency administrators. What are those hot topics that they really are interested in finding out what's the best research have to say about that? What kinds of policy choices do we have? How have they worked in other places? So very practical, realistic concerns that they have. So our goal then is to identify that topic, then to find the best researchers in the country who can also translate the research. So for example, we don't really want a researcher who's going to advocate for one particular policy. We need someone who can be nonpartisan and say, well, if you adopt this particular kind of family income tax credit, it will advantage these kinds of families, but it'll disadvantage these. Or perhaps you might consider this kind of policy. So that approach is what we need. So it needs to be nonpartisan, timely, and relevant for the Oregon context. So in 2015, we hosted our first seminar on two-generation approaches to poverty, and we brought in Greg Duncan and Sibel Raver. Went over very, very well. We hosted this in the Capitol in Salem. We had key legislators there, and they were so engaged with our two speakers that they took their business cards and said, could we follow up with you later? And then we go across the street to the state library where the state agency representatives are there, and we had a huge turnout for that as well. And then in 2016, the next one we hosted was called Childhood Obesity, School and Community Solutions. And in that case, we really wanted to highlight healthy eating, but also physical activity as it relates to child obesity. So we brought in Craig Gunterson from the University of Illinois, because his specialty is a SNAP program, so he could really talk about how the SNAP program relates to child obesity. And we brought in, at no extra cost, our very own Kathy Gunter. Worked out quite well.
I didn't know that I could. It was
Yeah, it really is. It was part of our budget cut. Yeah. No. Because Kathy is famous for her knowledge of physical activity programs and policies and its relation to child obesity, which you can see on some of the slides earlier. So they did a great job. They spoke before the Oregon Hunger Task Force, and several legislators and legislative staff were there. And then we went across the street to the state library, and they spoke in front of state agency representatives. And then, as Kathy mentioned before, she was also able to testify before the Senate Healthcare Committee. The other important thing I want to say about these is that we're going to continue doing them. And in 2018, we're thinking about the topics of housing, homelessness, and food insecurity, which is always a continuing concern in our state. We also produce briefing reports, policy reports after these seminars, and they sit on our website, so you can look at them there. And the other thing I want to invite you is that we do now have a family policy working group in the Hallie Ford Center. So if we just sort of started as a result of this work, so if you're interested, please let us know. And with that, I'm going to...
Well, thank you all. Can you tell that we have a lot of fun together as a team? I think you will have heard a lot of those words we talked about with that opening question. And I hope you will also have heard an invitation from each and every one of these core directors to get involved in the work of these cores. We've wanted always to be a very welcoming and inclusive team, and we would very much like to hear from you if you have interest in joining in. You've also heard about some of the future directions. Each one of the leaders has talked about some next steps, and I want to kind of kick it up just a little bit to the higher level of the center and make a few final comments about directions I'd like to see us nurture as a group in the years to come. Of course, that theme of resilience, the resilience of individuals and families and communities, I think is one that we will continue to stand by. It's one that's become so central to our identity so far. Some of that is also could grow in having a stronger focus on transitions, not just the normal expectable transitions, often big leaps in the lives of kids and youth and families, but thinking also about transitions that are unexpected as whole lives of whole families and populations are swept up in controversial and political issues around migration and economic upheaval and war and other difficult social processes. Related to that, I'd say we will continue to also nurture great attention to inequality. Somebody mentioned that earlier, and you will have heard that reference many times in this talk. I think understanding the sources of inequality, the things that produce inequality for kids and families coming in, but also the results of inequality coming out as children and youth and their parents grow up and older. There was mention already about a commitment to rural issues. I think that has to be central to the work we're doing here in the state. And we have a sizable contingent of faculty now who are really interested in questions about economic instability and housing instability and food insecurity, as Sally mentioned. And I think those are areas that we very much want to nurture in the time ahead. Building some new capacity in the area of child and youth mental health. I think this is a key area that we just don't have much expertise in, but we're eager to grow it. So central to our communities here. And finally, I mean, much of our work has been very social and behavioral, as you will have heard. But I think we all share a commitment to really wanting to enlarge the kinds of research we do and the kinds of questions we ask to get more in the realm of genetics and epigenetics, and in collaboration with the environmental sciences. For example, contributing to the growing literature on the developmental origins of health and disease, hypotheses in which chronic conditions in adulthood can often be tied to gene-environment interactions in childhood, in infancy, and even in the womb, of course. And I think these are areas that we all would like to see nurtured in some way. And for me, that means fostering much more attention to life course questions, understanding the long-range implications of early life experiences, again, for kids and families as they all grow older together through time, and in which we can trace the legacies of early life experiences for functioning in midlife and even in old age. And we now have longitudinal data that are long enough to really look carefully at those connections. It's an exciting time in developmental science for that reason. And I think together, all of those themes that I've just been talking about are great because those are exactly where some of developmental science's most pressing and complicated puzzles are. And I think we'd all like to get around those issues and move them forward. That rests on collaborations not only within the center, but between our centers. There are 4 centers in the college besides ours: the Center for Healthy Aging Research, the Moore Center, and also our newest center, the Center for Global Health. And together, the center directors and the teams meet regularly, and I think we are all eager to forward these kinds of questions. Let me close by simply saying this, and it's 1 o'clock, that's amazing, that when we started this just over 5 years ago, as I traveled the state giving talks and would always mention the Hallie Ford Center, and this amazing team has also done the same. It's been incredible to move from, well, it feels a bit like being part of a startup venture where no one knows who you are. And so in the beginning, people would say, well, tell me about the Hallie Ford Center. And then a couple of years ago, things started to shift. People started to say, hey, I heard about the Hallie Ford Center, or somebody I know was just at that center. Tell me more. And I can't wait until we reach this next phase where people maybe would even say, oh my gosh, everywhere I turn, I can't stop hearing about the Hallie Ford Center. Not as something to be escaped, but as something to be embraced. And I want to thank you all for being part of that. I want to encourage you all to get involved in whatever ways you like. And I especially, today's a special day, and it would not have been possible without Laura's help. So Laura, Kayla, is Kayla in here? Kayla Ramirez is right outside. We can thank her when we're out there. Kayla works on the foundation side. And of course Heather Brust as well. So thank you all.